Pleasant good afternoon. Let me apologize for the delay. We had a longer meeting than usual. There were 5 or so issues that I'd like to treat with before we take questions. In the first place, let me share my concern about Kenwin Vincent, the missing fisherman. I think all of us are hoping that it does have a positive conclusion. In the meantime, our prayers go out to him and his family, and we really hope that this particular exercise would end in a manner with which we'd all be comfortable. So that my best wishes to him and his family, and of course all those involved in the search and rescue operation. I want to talk a little about the air bridge and the sea bridge. I think all of us are aware that the situation on the air bridge has been unsatisfactory for quite some time. But I think at this point in time it is untenable. I don't know too many people who have not experienced or know somebody who has experienced significant inconvenience, embarrassment on the air bridge. In fact, we have a situation where even at my office, a number of appointments had to be cancelled because people just simply could not get to Tobago. This has had very significant effect, not only on the business arrangements, but also, of course, on the convenience of people traveling between Tobago and Trinidad. And the situation, of course, has been exacerbated by the fact that there's only one ferry operating at this point in time. And I think we sometimes underrate the impact that this has on our tourism sector and by extension our economic development. As one tourist operator indicated, we are in fact making it difficult to attract the high-end tourists. That visitor from Trinidad who can afford a choice and has an option and actually finds it easier to travel to one of the islands or even Miami or some other country, easier to travel to that destination by Caribbean Airlines than to travel to Tobago by the same Caribbean Airlines. This obviously cannot be allowed to continue. I therefore had a discussion with the chairman of the Caribbean Airlines board, Mr. Philip Marshall, and I explained to him what our concerns are, the level of distress which is being felt by the people of Tobago and, of course, by the people of Trinidad. And we have agreed to meet next week, Tuesday morning, to discuss the issue, but not just to discuss. We will be coming to the table with recommendations, both recommendations to treat with the situation in the immediate term and in the short to medium term. We have made recommendations in the past, but I don't think that those recommendations, any serious effort was made to implement those recommendations. Because I think we have a fundamental challenge with mindset. I think that we have to have a mindset that treats, and I've said this before and I'll continue to say it, that treats the air bridge as an essential service and therefore gives the air bridge the kind of priority which that labeling or branding would place upon it. And except we do that, we will find that we consistently be placed at a lesser priority than the regional and international passengers, and therefore there will be no predictability where the air bridge between Tobago and Trinidad is concerned. I will be inviting the Secretary with Responsibility for Tourism and Transportation. I'll also be extending, I haven't written to them yet because I only made the arrangements earlier today. I also will be inviting representatives from the Chamber of Commerce, and hopefully we'll be able to put forward some recommendation that will alleviate the situation. Where we have a situation now where people are telling you that they cannot get a booking to Tobago for all of July, and I suspect well into August, I think we have an idea as to how very, very serious this situation is. So that is with the sea air bridge. The sea bridge situation is something on which we also need some clarification. I spoke to the chairman, Mr. Suraj Gangaprasad, earlier today. He did give me some level of assurance that between 7 to 10 days, the ferry that is now on dry dock, that it should be coming out of dry dock, and they're looking at the 20th as the outside date for this ferry to be back in service. In the meantime, he has indicated that there will be double sailings starting, I think, this week, I think maybe today, in the hope of getting rid of some of the backlog and taking care of the holiday traffic. But at our meeting with the chairman and the selected members of the board, we will be hoping to clarify and to get more certainty and more predictability into that particular process, because the sea and air bridges are our lifeline, and I say to the people that as far as I'm concerned, you got to treat that as how you treat the roadway between San Fernando and Port of Spain. It's just as important, and it should be given that same degree of priority. And while we're on the subject of service, I want to say a little bit about the bus service. The information that I have as of today is that we need a minimum of 30 buses in order to cater for public transportation in Tobago with any degree of credibility. At present, my information is that of today, there were 11 serviceable buses in Tobago, plus the 3 handicap buses. But what makes that situation even more alarming is the fact that there seems to be little prospect of us receiving any additional new buses from the PTSC. In fact, the buses that are now being ordered, according to my information, are CNG fuel buses. There is no CNG plant in Tobago. And again, my information is subject to correction, that most of the CNG buses are not really manufactured to suit the Tobago terrain. So that except we have an approach that takes into consideration the Tobago situation in ordering the buses, we are likely to be in this position for a very long time. And in fact, what the local PTSC officials have been forced to do is to actually try to repair, I wouldn't even call it the aging fleet, the obsolete fleet, the aged fleet that is now, you see remnants of there at the at the PTSC compound. And obviously that means that there is no predictability, there is significant breakdown, and no real improvement in the situation. The Tobago House of Assembly, in an effort to treat with this, has approached the Brazilian manufacturers in order to purchase 25 buses to be utilized by the members of the Maxi Taxi Association, some under the control of the Tobago House of Assembly, and some to supplement the PTSC fleet. That is not something that can be done as easily as, just going to the manufacturer and purchase. We have to make arrangements with the bank. We have to make arrangements with the Maxi Taxis. These operators have to make sure that they get their mortgages and so on. So that particular situation is taking a little more time than anticipated. In addition to that, I think you might be aware that recently the Brazilian government would have lessened the level of support and the concessions to that industry in Brazil, and with a subsequent loss of jobs and, of course, a likely increase in costs. So all of those things have to be taken into consideration, but we remain committed to ensuring that that particular transaction is completed and that we can use our own initiative to bring some relief in that particular area. Now, in recent times, the situation at the Hope Beach has created some public concern, and I think justifiably so. Because I had a discussion with Mr. Linford Beckers from the Environmental Division or unit in the Division of Agriculture, Marine Affairs, Marketing, Division of Agriculture, Marine Affairs, Marketing and the Environment. And he shared some of the concerns which his unit has, which I think are similar concerns to which the public has. One is the point of visual obstruction. When you pass there is obviously not that kind of view of the sea which one associates with that, and that has an impact. And public access and the perception of public access, because I think the two things have to be linked. The berm does restrict public access, but it also gives a perception that it is not something to which the public is invited. There's a drainage issue because of the fact that the berm is obviously solid, basically, and there have been instances of flooding in the upper section of that area. And something he drew to my attention about which I was not aware, the safety of the utility infrastructure. In other words, because of the height of the berm, it makes the lines and so on, the TNTEC lines, a little closer, and therefore all the dangers involved in that. But on that side, you also got to look at the other side, which are some of the reasons why the contractors or the developers wanted to have something like that. The first thing they spoke to was this question of pedestrian safety. And the other one, they talked about the safety of recreational users, not having that kind of free-for-all that would jeopardize people. Unauthorized vending, which is something that I think the Tobago House of Assembly shares that concern. And the disposal of solid waste, especially earthen material, which is something that I think occurs in almost every open area. I mean, I live at Lowlands, and almost every day I pass there, DP comes, they clean, and then 2 days after, they come and they dump. So that there are issues on both sides. But I think the concerns of the public and the concerns of the environmental unit must be addressed. To that end, we have arranged a meeting between the developer and the assistant secretary with the Division of Infrastructure, because the secretary is not in the country at this point in time, the engineers at the Division of Infrastructure, and officials of the environmental unit. That meeting is scheduled for 10 tomorrow morning at the Office of the Division of Infrastructure and Public Utilities. And when I spoke to Mr. Beckers, he was very confident that they would be able to work out a solution that is acceptable to the unit, to the division, and to the public. So that I am looking forward with anticipation to the results of those discussions. But the important thing is that the Assembly is aware of the public concern. Some of the areas have been shared. But the Assembly is also aware that some of the issues raised by the developer are valid, and therefore there's a need to have some degree of, negotiation, and I think with dialogue and goodwill, the situation can in fact be resolved. There is the question of payment of arrears, and I want to place that in perspective, because sometimes if you don't put the information out there early enough, when the situation does occur, people believe that you're making excuses. The information that I would have received is that in many cases, the arrears are ready to be paid. In other words, they actually have been, maybe not in all, but in many cases, the sheets have been completed, they have been audited, and they're ready to payment. What has happened, of course, is that we have not yet received the payment or the funding from the central government for the payment of arrears. As you must know, payment of arrears nationwide is done through a special allocation coming from the Ministry of Finance. And the Ministry of Finance would have got approval from Parliament at the midterm review to have that funding made available and therefore allocated. So we are waiting on that, and as soon as that is received, we can start the payment of arrears to teachers and other public servants. And just by the way, we have also not received our fourth quarter allocation. I'm hoping that we don't have a repetition of previous quarters. One, when the allocation has been late, and two, when it has been short. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we don't have a repetition of previous years with respect to this. And finally, let me congratulate all of those who would have been nominated with respect to the THA Sports Awards. I'm happy to see it returning, and I think one area where we would have done very well is in the area of sport, especially particular sports like athletics, table tennis, lawn tennis, these areas, and I'm looking forward to seeing the awardees receive their just due after bringing significant credit to Tobago in the past year, I should say in the past years. So I look forward to that, and I congratulate in advance not just the eventual winners, but all the awardees and all of those who would have made the sacrifices, put in the work, and brought credit to Tobago in the field of sport. So I'll stop there at this point in time and open the floor for any questions.
Hi, Mr. London. Just two questions. Actually, I want you to clarify for me how many buses you said you all are trying to get from the Brazilian manufacturer.
25.
And also, do you have any comment to make on, well, I know that the PNM would have issued a release, but as the Chief Secretary, do you have any comments to make on Winston Gypty Peters acting as the Minister for Tobago Development, coming as a surprise not only to the PNM but to Tobagonians as a whole?
Well, yes, the PNM made a comment, issued a press release, and it would have sparked both negative and positive comments. And let me tell you why I support the statement or the press release, for two reasons. One, we have a situation where not just a Minister of Tobago Development, because he did not take holidays or vacation from being Minister of Tobago Development. He took vacation from being the representative of Tobago West. And at this critical juncture, you have to ask yourself, whether the timing of that was what, because remember that he was portraying himself as being able to represent Tobago West primarily because of his position of Minister of Tobago Development. So the two things, as far as I'm concerned, in my mind, are very closely linked. So I found the timing very strange. I mean, it is his right as a worker, as an individual, to take vacation when he wants. So I just found the timing strange, and I leave it at that. The second thing to which I think the release would have pointed, and which I think is significant, and it's a question that Tobagonians have to ask themselves. If a Tobagonian was not in charge of the Ministry of Tobago Development, would we have taken what we have taken from the Ministry of Tobago Development? That's the question. Because I think one of the reasons why we did not respond as aggressively as we should have when all of these incursions were made is because we had a comfort level that it is our representative who's in charge, and therefore he would in fact take care of us. So that the issue is not whether it's a Tobagonian or not. That is not the only issue. The issue is the representative of the people of Tobago. And I'm saying that I have a degree of discomfort when you have a situation where we have allowed incursion after incursion after incursion under the belief, or with the belief, that because it is our representative, he's going to take care of us. My question is, when our representative is no longer in charge, and those incursions become the precedent, will we feel as protected? And I think those are the two issues with which I have concern. One, the timing, and two, whether we feel as comfortable now that the interests of the Tobago House of Assembly or the interests of Tobagonians would be as protected in a situation where the Tobago House of Assembly is undermined, and some of that power seems to now be shifting to the Ministry of Tobago Development. Those were the two issues.
Because of this, persons have also raised the issue about, in the past, the Patrick Manning being the Minister for Tobago Affairs, and now the PNM is arguing that, we have a Trinidadian now as Tobago Development Minister.
And I think that is why, because you see, if you put it like that, there's absolutely no problem with that. In other words, if the Ministry of Tobago Development is doing what the Ministry of Tobago Development is supposed to be doing, because the Ministry of Tobago Development is supposed to be involved in taking care of the areas of responsibility assigned to the central government, to take care of those areas in the Tobago, in the relationship between Tobago and the central government. I have absolutely no problem. But when you have a situation where the Ministry of Tobago Development is attempting and has succeeded in taking over some of those areas which are under the ambit of the Tobago House of Assembly, and you have a situation where many of us supported that, and I suspect one of the reasons why we supported it and we were not as uncomfortable as we should have been is because we had the comfort of our, not just our Tobagonian, our Tobago representative in charge. So I think that is the nuance that has to be put into the mix. It is not a question of just a Tobagonian. It is the Tobago representative. And it is not a question of the Ministry of Tobago Development. It is a Ministry of Tobago Development that seems, at this point in time, to be a counterpart or seems to be or almost a rubber stamp of the Tobago House of Assembly.
One more thing. There was the shutdown of the education building this morning. Apart from Huey Cadet being the secretary and responding, other buildings have been shut down, other THA buildings. And the question is, why are we putting workers into buildings that we know are not working, one, and why are we housing workers in buildings that, air-conditioned units gone bad for months, and we're still asking the employees to come to work in such conditions? Also, the PSA president is saying that these exorbitant rents are being paid monthly and still the working conditions are not good enough for the employees. So what is your response to that?
Well, let me just say two things to that. And when one looks at where workers have been housed over the years, let's start from there. There has been a significant improvement in the conditions under which workers in the Tobago House of Assembly are operating. And in many cases, those buildings were in fact rented. And one of the reasons why they would have rented buildings at that price was because of the quality of the buildings and what we don't determine the price. It's normally done by a valuator. In many cases, the government valuator. So that's one. Secondly, you got to talk about two different kinds of buildings. You got to speak to the buildings in which the new buildings to which we're moving in, and buildings in which we have been in and which have to be maintained. And we have to be realistic. Things happen. We can be in this room at this point in time and the air condition goes off. Are we going to blame somebody for that? And depending on the complexity of the process or the complexity of the problem, it will take a day, it will take a week, it will take a month. We do not know. That is not something for which you can blame the assembly. We went into a building. We've been in the building now for a few years. With a building like that, of that size, the air conditioned unit, especially, I don't know what it is, a central air conditioned unit, it is going to be a significant problem. And ironically, it is a problem over which we, the assembly, do not have control from an operational perspective. What we have to do in that situation is to determine the balance between, one, the comfort and safety of the workers, and two, the work getting done. And I think, I might be wrong, but I think that even before there was any intervention, decisions were taken that the workers will work maybe 3 or 4 hours. I think that happened even before. There was no coercion. This was an agreement between the administrator and the workers. So I think we need to be realistic and not be carried away by, the hype. And in some cases, statements being made that are not in sync with the reality. In the case of new buildings, I accept the fact, and this is something that we have given instructions, that sometimes in the efforts to get people into better physical surroundings, they have not taken note of the regulatory responsibilities. And the chief administrator and I have given instructions that under no circumstances should any division move into any building except our OSHA people, and I repeat, not just the admin, our OSHA people indicate to them that all the regulatory requirements have been met. But you see, sometimes you have a chicken and egg, not a chicken and egg, so a catch-22 situation. Because you might be in a building that doesn't meet requirements because it's old, and you want to go into a new building that you can't go into because you haven't yet got the relevant, and that sometimes is the issue. But we're saying that in a situation like that, do not move into a new building except all the regulatory requirements are met, because we know what is going to happen. So I just want to indicate, I think that we have been very responsible in the way in which we have attempted as far as possible to make sure that our workers are in comfortable surroundings. It is a work in progress, but if you compare over the years where people were in 2001, where they were in 2005, 2010, 2015, in almost every division there has been a significant improvement. I'll tell you something. If you compare what is the general situation in Tobago as against many areas in Trinidad, you would realize that we're not doing so badly after all. Because you see, what happens is that what makes the news is not when things are comfortable. What makes the news, and that is what news is all about. What makes the news is when something breaks down, right? But all the years that building was supposed to be one of the model buildings, right, with escalator and air condition and so on, and proper tiles, etc., etc. Nobody complained. It was not considered to be substandard. But the air condition unit broke down. Air condition units break down. What we need to do is to treat with the issue with sensitivity and professionalism, and I think that is being done.
Good afternoon to the Chief Secretary. My question is about the recent visit of the National Trust. There was discussions about the potential setting up of a Tobago committee. What would this mean for Tobagonians? Well,
the discussion on the National Trust is continuing. And what we have decided is that there is going to be a meeting comprising representatives of the National Trust and representatives of the Tobago House of Assembly. Because what we made, and I think we finally got agreement, what we indicated to the National Trust is that their relationship with the Tobago House of Assembly cannot be based on their relationship, let's say, with the boroughs or with the county councils and so on. The Tobago House of Assembly has to be treated as an entity with its autonomy and with the authority over many of those things which are not under the authority of the boroughs and therefore that is why we need to have a meeting of the decision makers before we get into the operational issues. So there was agreement on that, and we had a very, very good meeting, and it was decided that we're going to have that meeting of the rep, and then we're going to determine how we move on to the next step, because we are in agreement that Tobago has a rich heritage, that it has to be preserved, and consequently, we need to make sure we do it in the most effective way. For example, they would have identified scores of sites and buildings and so on in Tobago which have to be preserved. One of the things we have to determine is what are we going to prioritize. We would love to be able to focus on all of them, but we cannot. So these are some of the issues that are going to be determined. Issues about how do you link the physical heritage with the natural heritage and so on, and how do you take a holistic approach towards the preservation of the heritage. So those things will be discussed, but we have not come to any definitive decision. I think the timeline is that the members of the committee should be appointed by next Friday, and the committee should have its first meeting, or the two committees should have their first meeting no later than the end of this month.
Good afternoon, Mr. London. It has come to our attention that there might be a next shuffle of the administrators in the Tobago House of Assembly. Could you confirm this?
Well, I wouldn't call it a shuffle. What is happening is that administrators have to retire when they're 60. And therefore, anytime you have a retirement, it requires shifting around. So that I think the 23rd of this month, there is going to be somebody is retiring, I can't remember whom. So yes, there's that is happening. In addition to that, sometimes administrators go on fairly extensive leave because their leaves are accumulated. Administrators go on leave sometimes for 3 or 4 months. So when that happens, you have to shift around, and then it's almost like chess, because if you move one here, then it creates a space and you've got to move somebody. So that whether you call that a reshuffle or shifting around, yes, something is going to happen again towards the end of this month, but it is because of the fact that people are going on holidays and people are being, at least one person I think is retiring.
Okay. And has there been any closure to the $102 million shortfall?
No, I spoke to the secretary up to a few minutes before I came here, and he has indicated that he has got neither funding nor explanation. So we still in limbo, in fact. But I think what is even more critical to us now, as I said, is the receipt of the payment for the fourth quarter, which is going to be even more substantial than the shortfall, and the payment to take care of the arrest of teachers, public servants, and daily rated workers. Okay?
Good afternoon. I want to deal with one issue related to the air bridge. Sometime in early September last year, 2014, I was trying to get the exact date, but sometimes when I edit my iPad would shift the date. Now you came here and you announced, it's either you or the Secretary for Tourism, the appointment of a task force and an action force to respond to the Caribbean Airlines issues plaguing Tobago. Now, note a little lower down said that in 1 month a feedback was expected from the task force. Now, I never heard anything about the task force since that announcement. Now, here we are in July 2015. And if I'm not mistaken, at that time, the issues there was at an all-time low. Well, you will be aware that sleeping at the airport and climbing on one another and cussing out is a normal thing. So here we are in July 2015, and you're telling us about a conversation that you are going to have with Caribbean Airlines and inviting a team along with you. So what has happened to this, big announcement?
Let me just say that I am not aware of the task force.
You're not aware?
I was not the one who made the announcement.
Oh, so you're not aware, okay.
No. So I will have to, most likely would have been the Secretary, so I could check with her.
It was both task and action, eh?
Yeah, with
Two
them.
of them.
So
Your Chief Secretary weren't aware?
No, I wasn't aware of that. But I can check it out. And maybe the report of that task force might inform us as we go into that meeting.
Oh, my goodness. Sounds like a merry-go-round to me. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. That's it. All right. Let me thank you all very much, and you all take care.